Well, Minister of Higher Education and Training, Bladen Nzimande, will today make the announcement on varsity fees for next year. Nzimande's office has confirmed that the announcement is expected at 11 o'clock this morning. Now, last week, Nzimande's office issued a statement regarding the progress on the 2016 university funding. The statement gave details of the implementation of the R4.5 billion that government committed for assistance of poor students that are academically deserving. It also stated that more than 17,500 students made claims amounting to more than R370 million with the National Student Financial Aid Scheme. Now, university fees have become a key national issue following last year's Fees Must Fall protests that saw university students take to the streets to protest for access to education. Well, joining us now on the line from UCT is their Vice-Chancellor, Max Price. Good morning to you, Mr. Price. Appreciate your time. What would you like to hear from the Minister today?
Good morning, Peter. What we'd like to hear is that the Minister has found money from various sources to enable us to transfer to the universities such that we don't have to put the fees up of students, specifically poor students and what we often call missing middle students. They're missing middle because they're not covered by the National Students Financial Aid Scheme, NSFAS, but they are below a certain household income such that they generally can't afford the full fees, sometimes even part of the fees. So, excuse me, those are the students who really suffer when fees go up, even if they're going up by inflationary levels. And in the past, those missing middle students have not been covered at all by a financial aid system. The NSFAS students have been partially covered, usually not adequately. So the universities have indicated that we need 8% more in 2017 than in 2016 if we're going to be able to carry on the business at the same level as we have. And that's slightly above inflation because our costs generally go up slightly above inflation. If we could get all of that 8% from the government, then there would be no need to increase fees. If we can get part of it, then we must either increase fees by some part, or we might be able to protect some part of the student community from a fee increase altogether, and others may have to face a fee increase, but obviously the wealthier students. So what we are hoping to hear is that the Minister has found sufficient money to enable us to protect poor students and missing middle students from any fee increase. They would have a zero fee increase, and that at the very least, if not covering all students. And then, as you know, there's the Commission of Inquiry. The students are insistent that there should be free education. I don't think the Minister is going to announce that. That's certainly what the students would like to hear. I would hope that the students would recognize that if we can ensure that the poorest students are protected and are not facing an increase, that is a good deal for them.
Are you concerned then that should the Minister not announce the fact that there will be free education, which is unlikely, you guys have closed your university for today, that there may well be a backlash from the students?
Yes, I am concerned. Let me just say we haven't closed the university. We've just suspended classes. Much of the rest of the activity of the university continues as normal. But we're concerned because the national student movements and many SRCs have put out statements that say that unless there's a commitment and evidence of moving towards free education for everyone, they would not support or accept the current recommendations, and they would call the students out to protest and to shut down the universities. It seems to me that that's a very destructive response because all students need to have an interest in concluding their years of study, getting their degrees, being able to get out into the workplace. And this is not something that can happen overnight from one year to the next.
Max, you say academic activities at the university have been suspended for today. Is that right? So just explain why that has happened.
Well, we've been having protests towards the end of last week as well. And the focus on our campus in the last week has been on some students who are facing student disciplinary tribunals because of their involvement in protests in February. They're accused of quite serious breaches of the law, such as arson and assault. And those tribunals, or the one tribunal for 3 students, met and concluded its business on Thursday. That was the trigger for recent protests. We're expecting that the finding of that tribunal might come out today, and that will potentially exacerbate the protests, the reaction to that. Combining that with the minister's announcement, which we think students are also going to organize, and means that we expect that there will be disruption, and we need to protect students and staff who want to get on with their classes and tests from that sort of disruption. It's it's traumatic. And at the moment we don't have the kind of security that would be needed, and we wouldn't normally pull that in for a short-term intervention. We're hoping that we can have a compact with the students, that we don't bring in additional security in return for their not disrupting classes. But if this looks like it's going to continue, then we would have to upscale our security so that we can protect the academic project.
Max, one last question. I mean, looking at it, taking a step back, last week we saw the sort of international standards rating system seeing a lot of South African universities, not only UCT, a number of tertiary institutions drop significantly in those rankings. I mean, you know, it's a double-edged sword here. You want to maintain, you know, the professionalism within these tertiary institutions, but also you want to give access to those students. Your comments on this rating system and the real issues around why you think that these institutions have decreased in these ranking systems.
It's a longer answer to give a full explanation. Let me start by saying that the first real problem with the ranking systems is that they do not take into account all the things that we think are important. They take into account certain measurable things such as research output and a survey of reputation. So the point you make about transformation, increasing access, providing financial aid to poor students, these are increasing academic support for students from disadvantaged schools. So firstly, those are not measured in the rankings, and so when we prioritize our resources, that's not going to be reflected. But the reason that that's always been the case, the reason that the universities in South Africa have dropped, also has to be understood that the rankings are a relative ranking. So if I can just take UCT as an example, which is the highest ranked of both the South African universities and all the African universities, in each of the criteria we improved. One criterion is how many publications did you have last year, and we had more publications than the year before. Another criterion is how many people quoted your work as a measure of its importance and impact, and the number of people that cited UCT publications went up. The third criterion is what is the proportion of international students and staff, which is often regarded as a measure of your reputation, and the proportion of our international students went up. We went up on all the criteria, and we were stable on what's called the academic reputation, and yet we dropped in the rankings. So what that's reflecting is not that the university has deteriorated or got worse. It's reflecting the fact that other universities in other countries have leapfrogged us. They've got better more quickly. And that is really because a number of countries have a different strategy in their higher education landscape. They have decided, like China, that they want to have a handful of universities in the top 100 in the world. And they're willing to put huge resources to differentiate their universities. They don't want all of them to be there, but they want some of them to be there. And they put huge resources to ensure that those universities become strong research universities.
Max, that's where we've got to leave it. Thanks so much. I appreciate your time this morning. That's UCT Vice-Chancellor Max Price joining us on the line from